My name is Peggy Ushman, and I am a Senior Program Analyst at the Information Security Oversight Office, or ISOO. Today, we will be discussing the more common marking errors we find on classified documents and why it is important that we recognize and fix them. We have many references that discuss marking classified documents. We have Executive Order 13526 and 32 CFR Part 2001, both titled Classified National Security Information. Both of these can be found on the ISOO webpage at www.archives.gov/ISOO under Policy Documents. We also have a number of training aids and tips, videos, and other guidance available on the Education and Training page, as well as links to the CUI and CDSC websites. Before we start our discussion on marking errors, let us first discuss the basics of original and derivative classification. Original classification is the initial determination that information requires protection in the interest of national security from unauthorized disclosure. Original classification authorities, or OCAs, have the important responsibility of determining what information requires protection. Every derivative classification decision stems from these original classification determinations. Derivative classification is taking information that has previously been classified and using it in a new document. Derivative classifiers are just as important as original classifiers. They have the responsibility to ensure that uniform and accurate classification decisions are being carried over into the documents they create. Here are the 7 most common errors. The document cites multiple sources as the basis for classification, but there is no listing of those multiple sources on the document. The document does not identify the original classification authority or the derivative classifier by name and position or by personal identifier. The document fails to cite or cites improperly the source of classification. The document is missing some of the portion markings. The declassification instruction is incorrect, incomplete, or non-existent. The overall classification for the document is missing or is incorrect. The information in the document does not meet the standards necessary for classification. Let's discuss each one. The document cites multiple sources as the basis for classification, but does not list the sources. Why is this important? Listing all of the sources used when creating the document allows for tracking the proper authority under which the derivative classification was done. If the source documents aren't listed, then the holder of the document cannot determine the validity of the information. Recipients of the document may need to go back to one or more of the source documents to verify the classification of the information or to get more information. And the listing of sources provides a wealth of reference material should additional information be required. The document does not identify the OCA or the derivative classifier by name and position or by personal identifier. Why do we need this? For originally classified documents, this ensures that only those individuals who have been properly delegated that authority are making these decisions and that there are no original classification determinations made by individuals who do not have that authority. For derivatively classified documents, this allows for greater accountability because the derivative classifier is personally responsible for ensuring the classification of the information in the document they are creating is accurate. Why is it required to list the position with the name? This is a way of verifying that the identified classifier is authorized to take that action. In the case of original classification, OCA is delegated to a position rather than an individual. Another point to make is that people change jobs. The person may not still be in that office, but the position will be. The document fails to cite or cites improperly the source of classification on the derived from line. This is required on all derivatively classified documents. Why is this important? This information allows the holder of the document to track back to the original classification decision, and it validates the classification of your document. Missing portion markings. The purpose of portion markings is to identify the classification of every portion within a classified document. This allows classifiers to take a portion of a document and carry it forward to another document and maintain a consistent level of classification. Portion markings dictate the overall classification of a document. If you don't know what the classification level of the portions are, you can't possibly know what the classification of the document is. Documents that are not portion marked cannot be used as source documents. You would then be forced to find the applicable security classification guide in order to apply proper markings to your document. The document has improper or incomplete declassification instructions. Inaccurate or incomplete declassification instructions could lead to information being declassified earlier than it should be, or cause the information to be classified longer than it should be. Without proper declassification instructions, it becomes difficult to determine the appropriate time frame for declassification review. The document lacks an overall classification marking or has improper or inaccurate overall classification markings. The overall classification marking tells the holder of the document how that document should be handled and safeguarded. The lack of proper overall classification markings could lead to security violations and leaks of classified information. The information in the document does not meet the standards necessary for classification. This is the very definition of overclassification. Originally classified documents must contain a reason for classification in accordance with Executive Order 13526, Section 1.4. If this is inaccurate, then that erroneous decision gets carried over into every document that uses that original document as a source document. The sensitivity of information changes over time. It is always advisable to consult the appropriate security classification guide to determine the most current classification and declassification information. Why does this matter? Errors increase the potential for overclassification or underclassification. Errors create problems with effective information sharing. Every mistake made at the beginning of the classification management process affects the declassification process. One error multiplies every time it is carried over to a new document. We have shown on this slide how one original classification decision turns into many derivative classification decisions. This briefing and all of our training materials can be found on ISOO's webpage at www.archives.gov/ISOO/training. If you have any questions, please send them to isootraining@nara.gov. Thank you.